Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Trafford Talk special. Something different for once. We're not talking about the future or the present. We're pretty much going to try and talk about the past and the madness that is Manchester United's season up to this point. As always, this is an interactive show. We try our best to encourage everyone to come on, and we'd like you as best to add what your thoughts are on United's season and where they could possibly end up at the end of it in the comments. This is why we have a comment section on YouTube and on Twitter. So if you're with us this evening, please feel free to interact with me and Alexei. We'll be happily able to answer questions and stuff like that. Obviously, Alexei's got a big following, and we've got so much, I'm sure, to cover this evening, Alexei.
Yeah, well, a season's worth of nostalgia. Not all of it is fun, but we're going to do our best, sift through it, pick out what we think are the positives, the negatives, and then try and form a conclusion based on how we think it's going so far.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll get through it in an hour. We planned only to do this for an hour. I was about to be drafted to the shops, and then someone jumped at the bit to go and buy sweets instead of me go ahead. So
that's lockdown boredom, isn't it?
Lockdown boredom
to the shops.
It's the only joy you get from life at the moment. So let's first of all get right into it, because there's so much going on with Man United. We'll obviously start with we'll start from the very beginning and more or less where last season ended. We had the Europa League semi-final. It went wrong against Sevilla. Probably should have played better on the night, but the general feeling was that's a winnable game, and the fact that United were in front and had chances in the match before being pegged back, we probably should have gone ahead in the second half, but great goalkeeping. In the end, the team that loved this competition won it, and we should really have been coming into this season with a trophy. Probably the routine Bayern smacking would have been overdue, but outside of that, season starts with I'd say a whimper, because we had to play a week after everybody else, Alexei. And heading into the season, because you were obviously not with us when the channel didn't even exist when the season started, how did you view United's preparations towards the start of the season, albeit 28 days between the Europa League semi-final and the start of the season?
Oh, it was an absolute shambles. I mean, same for Manchester City as well. And I guess same for Chelsea. I mean, us and City went further in our competitions, but it's just an absolute shambles that United and City basically had no pre-season, and all we got was an extra week to prepare for a game. It was really, really bad, and we saw the effects of it quite clearly, that the players weren't fit in the first few weeks. That explains the performances, and we saw we were unlucky because Paul Pogba, probably our most important player, arguably, came down with COVID. And I think the problem was that the transfer window, when the season started, it wasn't overly inspiring what had happened in that. And yeah, I had a lot of... I wasn't overly optimistic before the season started. And so the first game happens, and it's Palace at home, and you're thinking, this didn't go very well last year. And it was a disaster, And the first few games were pretty disastrous. And I think the crescendo of it was the 6-1 against Tottenham. The 6-1 against Tottenham was kind of when things did change a bit, because it was like, it got really bad then. Like, really, really bad. And then things got better. The 6-1 against Tottenham is obviously hard to comprehend. I think there's various factors at play. Obviously, the team wasn't fit. I personally think, obviously, people know that I'm obviously very pro Ollie, but I think Ollie actually got the team wrong in that game. I think it was naive to play a midfielder, Matic, Bruno and Pogba, with two wingers that weren't tracking back against a counter-attacking side, especially when we didn't have, players with energy or weren't fit. I think Ollie really got that wrong, personally. Obviously, the red card didn't help. There was external factors that didn't help. But I think that moment was so low, that Tottenham day, because it was just awful. Like, it was the joint worst thing I've seen since supporting United. But after that, I think we had a bit of an upturn, and I think it was obviously partly because of the fact we lost 6-1. We needed to respond to it, but I think obviously players get fitter as the time goes on. And we saw it with City as well. City had a shocking result against, I think it was Leicester. They conceded 5 at home. And I don't think it's a coincidence. Within a week, we concede 6 at home to Spurs and they concede 5 at home to Leicester, because both Manchester United and Manchester City weren't allowed a pre-season, which is just, I mean, when sports scientists look back on this season, they're going to think it's absolutely madness that at the start of that season, City and United, were in that thing of having no pre-season. And I wonder, now you've got to give really both teams credit for being the top 2 teams in the league, considering they were at such a disadvantage, both sides, at the start of the season.
Mad, really mad. It's the craziest experience I've seen as a United fan for such a long time. All this as well because while we were doing, I think, trying to make signings, which was probably the biggest frustration for fans as a whole. We were going through that window, all on literal tenterhooks on whether Sancho would be coming or not, but under the entire the green screen of reality, people were ignoring the fact that United had bigger problems, which were exposed in the Europa League semi-final. The inability for defenders to deal with crosses was a big problem at the start of the season as well. Not only was it against Palace, but evident against Tottenham. We did have a little bit of fortune against Brighton. Very, very lucky in the end. Can't be ignored.
Game I've ever seen.
If we'd won the league this season, we'd have thanked the referee that day, Chris Kavanagh, for giving us that penalty after the whistle had gone, because that was one of the biggest moments this season. Obviously, it won't happen now, but it would have been controversial to say the least. And Brighton will be keen to one-up us next time they come to Old Trafford after the break. But yeah, we got away with that one. We rattled them in the cup after that before losing 6-1 to Spurs. Then it was the international break. And in that period, we had the window just about closed. And suddenly, United had problems because we were about to, in fact, leave the transfer window without the primary targets that Oli set out in Sancho and Grealish, because Grealish would go on to sign a new contract. And Sancho would remain in Germany, albeit with United haggling and tugging at the price tag Dortmund set at the start of the summer. It should have been a deal that was done sooner. The Edinson Cavani deal was last minute, and unfortunately, that's what life at the time was hard to be a United fan. It was basically the big shiny thing that United were trying to say, this is what we could have been with Sancho, but here's Cavani just for this season. Bit grim, really. And then 2 young guns in Pellistri and Amad Diallo come in. Unfortunately, Diallo's visa wasn't done in time. Unfortunately, United could not get him into the country sooner. So had he been in from the get-go and United had prepared to sign him rather than haggle over Dembele and Sancho in the end, we would have had him in this team sooner rather than this period we're in right now. Pellistri would not get into the first team at all, as I remember. So he's out. Alaves now is doing okay, as I understand, but long way to go yet. But United form did pick up a lot better afterwards, and it had a couple of high points before the next international break. The 2 being victories over Paris Saint-Germain and Leipzig in the first 2
we need
groups.
to talk about those, Ahmed. That PSG performance was one of the best I've seen for years. It was brilliant. Because the first time we beat Paris, I know it was kind of all like all the ollies at the wheels, like, all of that. But we were quite lucky to win the first time. It was pretty.
I wouldn't say that, to be honest, Alexei. I look at that game. Oli has already got data on Paris Saint-Germain from the last time he played against them. So the majority of that team is still there. You don't have too many, players in difference to the one that played against us in that last 16 tie. The differences are Thiago Silva's not there this time. You don't have Dani Alves at right back. He didn't play in that game he moved on to Brazil. Leandro Paredes is in this match as well. In fact, because I'm looking at all the matches as I'm reading them to you.
In the sense, though, I think, don't you think, though, so do you not think that when we won, I mean, the first time we won in Paris was lucky? I don't mean the second time.
Yeah. The first time was lucky. Obviously, we needed luck that night. But this time around was a more culturally perfected performance by United against Tuchel.
Them. Yeah, Ollie got his tactics spot on, and the players executed them really well. I remember we had a few chances in the first 10 minutes, and you're kind of thinking, here we go. And if it wasn't, there's a bit of a fluky own goal, it would have been quite a comfortable victory. And that was, like you say, that was really, really big, impressive win.
Mm-hmm. It was incredible. That night, we went with a 5 at the back formation. It was the debut of Alex Telles in the team, with Luke Shaw playing at centre half. Obviously, with Maguire's injury, he had for once Maguire didn't play in a game because of an injury. He would miss that game, and Tuanzebe came in and put in probably the most cultured performance for centre half that I've seen in such a long time.
It's incredible, wasn't it?
He was brilliant. His rating that night was a 6.6 according to FOTMA, which I think is a bit scandalous in my opinion. I performed so much better with him in the team. There's so much pace. There was a lot of control from Tuanzebe. Then Wan-Bissaka pulled off a solid performance against Neymar and Mbappe too. United scored, unfortunately, all the goals that night, albeit one in the wrong end. But that winner from Rashford really calmed everyone. The 3 points were incredible, and suddenly you're starting to think, well, Ollie's doing something right here. And I think rival fans, who, unlike now, stood up and took notice. Oh, United are actually beating teams. They're actually putting the best in Europe, the runners-up of the Champions League, to the sword here. Surely they're not going to really going to kick on from here. And, the applauded centre, of course, went to Ollie for that performance. They went to Tuanzebe for his excellent defensive work, Telles for his overall confidence in the game, and Rashford and Fernandes for the winners. But we go on to Chelsea. Chelsea having, obviously, under Lampard, new stars, new players, big responsibilities. United head into that game. Cavani makes his debut and all. And it's the drabbest 0-0 we've ever seen, with penalty claims left, right, and centre.
I spend a lot of my time online defending our performances, but that 0-0 Chelsea game, honestly, it was like nothing happened. All I remember is I think Rashford had a chance, did he? That Mendy saved.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was just kind of two managers playing to not lose that game, really. And obviously, Frank Lampard, we thought at that point was doing quite well because he'd shored up Chelsea's defence. They were shipping goals. I think they got a 3-3 draw with Southampton, and everyone went, oh dear, what's going on here? But after that, I think he went on a run about 17 games unbeaten. And he shored up their defence and everything, and they did well in the Champions League. And we saw it against us. He used us as a prototype.
Yeah.
I think they got a clean sheet against Sevilla midweek, if I'm right in saying. And then
they did.
And then they kept a clean sheet against us, and we were kind of almost the guinea pigs in Lampard's new kind of more defensive approach, which was a perfect storm for it being a really terrible game.
Absolutely horrible football match, and in the end, the points were shared in a match that I think we wanted to forget sooner rather than later. But it made Ollie confident and excited because the next match was against Leipzig, new opposition for United. And it probably was the most complete Man United performance I've seen in the Champions League for a number of years. Wiping them off the park, goals from Martial, Greenwood, and a hat-trick. His first in the Champions League for Marco and Rashford off the bench to completely tear apart this German side. It was the most ridiculous evening of football at Old Trafford in Champions League history.
You say it was ridiculous, right? I felt that at the time because I was watching it. There's a pub called O'Shea's in Manchester. I was watching it in. And obviously, because of social distancing and stuff, you're not allowed to leave your table. But we kept scoring, and I kept jumping up to celebrate. And when it got to about 3, the guy came over to me, the barman, said, "You cannot do that again." But then Rashford scored his hat-trick, and I was like, how am I not meant to celebrate this? This is completely ridiculous. It's outrageous. We're beating this team 5-0 that's really, really good at football.
Yeah, fortunately, I'd come back from Liverpool at that point, and I just could not believe how brilliant United were in the second half in particular, because I got back in time for that. It was a clear indication of where Ollie was taking United. It was brilliant. It was probably the high point of the season, and it was worrying our next opposition. Obviously, we'd start to think we've won two our toughest games in the group against Leipzig and PSG. Now we just need to get a result against Istanbul. We have a chance. Have a chance. But before Istanbul, unfortunately, United went and dropped another stinker against the one team you don't want to drop stinkers against. It was against Arsenal, and it was a 1-0 defeat, a penalty call, which is incredibly suspicious. But the game had 0-0 written all over it until Pogba fouled Bellerin in the penalty area for their penalty.
I remember watching that game, and not many people agree with me, but I think they deserve to win it, because I remember for the first half, they pressed us relentlessly. We couldn't keep the ball. I remember am I right in saying we set up with a diamond, I think, that game?
Let's have a look. See, yes, we did. We did play exactly the same situation. So set up for the match against Leipzig, almost man for man. It wasn't any different to how it was in midweek.
But I thought I was actually really impressed by Mikel Arteta's tactics that night, actually, because I think they pressed us really well and they compressed us. And I think it was like they were strangling us, We couldn't get out at all. And I remember in the first half, they had quite a few chances. Like Willian had a few that went over the bar. Aubameyang had a few. And that's one of those games where I don't think we deserved anything but a loss. I really think that was a bit of a wake-up call again. In the same way the 6-1 was against Spurs. That game was a big wake-up call because, as we'll discuss, we did not lose in the league after that for about 3 months. 2 months. 3 months. A long time, anyway. But yeah, I think that day was... It felt... My problem with that game was I felt a bit hopeless watching it, because it was just felt like we were at home at Old Trafford getting completely outplayed by Arsenal, which has never happened before. And obviously my views, I was obviously still fully behind the manager and I'm very supportive of all the players, but I was kind of thinking something needs to change here in terms of like how we approach these games, or just like maybe in the personnel, because it was bad, that one. And I think that felt worse to me in a way than the Tottenham one, just because in that one we had a fully fit team and we'd just beaten Leipzig 5-0 and it was like, oh, we're on a massive high. And then Arsenal happened and it's like, oh, damn. Like, it just burst the balloon, didn't it?
Yeah. Incredible, really, because I thought that evening we were beaten in a way that I didn't think United would get beaten for a long time. And obviously we had already lost that season in the early part of the season. But for Arsenal's, ability to set up the way they did, have Partey and El Neni completely press the living daylights out of anyone in midfield, and the wide areas where United could exploit were useless simply because of the fact there was no one out wide to play. In the end, he made changes. It didn't work. And United would deserve to lose that game. It was the funny part for me was the fact Arsenal fans were not all Arsenal fans were worried, but some were, and I thought we would have used that as not used their anger or worry about United's winning 5-0 against Leipzig in the Champions League to play to our advantage. Ultimately, that win would be the last for Arsenal for a long time, whereas for United, it's true, it was the last victory for a very long time for Arsenal. And that's
the best segue you've ever done.
It is. The fact you win at Old Trafford and then suddenly absolutely drop stinkers for a long time in that winter period. And this is early in the season as well, not even halfway in yet. It would normally used to be halfway through in December. But anyway, I would then drop another stinker, this one in Turkey, which I think changed our Champions League campaign for the worst. Ultimately, that night we were exposed for two things which I think Ollie would learn very much the hard way after that game. The first being, obviously, never to underestimate your opponent. They may be the worst team in the group, and they lost their first two games in the competition. However, United were probably heading there full of confidence with 2 wins out of 2, needing to win that game or at best pick up a point so that they could win next time out against them to secure the last 16 spot. First team on 10 points, they'd qualify, leaving it to be a shootout between Leipzig and PSG for a spot in the last 16. The complete opposite happens. Demba has left the entire length of Istanbul to run down and score the opening goal after United don't send everyone up for a corner. And
can I just say that defending was, I'm not joking when I say this, it's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying I'm some kind of footballing genius, but I think kids know to defend better. We left everyone in their penalty area. Whose idea was that?
I don't think anyone was anticipating the ball out to be as deep from I think it was Epiranu, the centre back. Yeah, Epiranu was the player who cleared the ball from his penalty area so far that Demba Ba was given, as I mentioned, the length of Istanbul to run down and score against Henderson. But in the end, it just didn't look convincing, and the second goal was an epitome of that. They give the ball to Juan Mata on the right. We get the ball, Mata on the right, loses possession. He's then out of position when they make a transition down the left-hand side. It suddenly looks like the world's biggest swarm going towards the ball. It's crossed in, and Eddie Vischer, again, time, space, plenty of it, and thrashed it Hobart's Henderson. And it was 2-0.
That game, I think, was why we got... Well, it literally was why we got knocked out. Because even if we'd drawn that, we would have gone through.
It's
so inexcusable that happened in hindsight. Like, do you know what? Like, in a way, nothing sums up this kind of the topsy-turviness of this season, in the sense that we'd beaten Leipzig 5-0 and won in Paris, and we were all elated, and then we lose to Istanbul. Like, that kind of sums up it's been a bit of a, especially at the beginning of the season in particular, it was a very yo-yo season. I mean, that game as a whole, I'd say it's probably the worst one out of the lot, because we allowed a player to be basically onside because he was in his own half and there was no players in our half. Like,
it was bewildering. I know, Alexei. Shocking defending. And on that night, I think that night when I watched it, and I was in Denmark for this one. It was the Midtjylland Ajax game, the next match I did. Yeah, I was looking for UEFA during this period, doing matches in the Champions League and Europa League. It was fun. It was quite good.
Fun.
Very fun. Next season should be more interesting. But frankly, basically, I sat in Denmark watching the game on. Thankfully, we were in the EU. We could watch BT Sport there, and I watched it, and I thought the BT Sport pundits summed it up brilliantly. The most objective performance in Europe demonstrated by Man United in 5 years. The last of which was the defeat to Wolfsburg that knocked us out in the group stage in 2015. It was a near comparative version of that game. It obviously put United on the back foot.
I don't know if that was as bad, though, just because...
Ooh, if you're letting someone deep inside your own half run through and
No, I
score...
mean, I don't think the Wolfsburg one's as bad. I think Istanbul's worse.
Okay, we took the lead in Wolfsburg and then went on to concede twice in the first half. We went further behind before pulling it back towards the end, but...
Then we brought Nick Powell on.
There we go. And everything fell apart, Alexei. Everything fell apart. It really did. So that's why it was a shambles. But at the end of the day, we didn't have a lot of options.
Sorry.
I don't know. We didn't have a lot of options on the bench, unfortunately. And frankly, the penalty for that was elimination. So I think that was as close to as poor performance as that was against Istanbul early this season. So United needed to respond, and we had, unfortunately, not much opportunities to do that. We only had one more game before the next international break. And United would go and beat Everton 3-1 in I'd say, a solid response to
this was huge, this one.
Yeah, the criticisms that were had after that performance on Wednesday night and the feelings of uncertainty in the ranks of fans who felt Oli was not capable of going up to the task. But it was also not only that day which we saw Fernandez's performance and Cavani open his goal tally for United, but it was also that Oli promised to the media United would simply not lose again in the Premier League. And I think that was what literally lit a candle up the squad's bottoms. It would then follow on from the international break with United winning away at home to West Bromwich Albion and then completing their revenge on Istanbul with a 4-1 thrashing at Old Trafford. Suddenly, United now were in a good position in the Champions League to secure their last 16 position. All they needed was a point. But when they went to Southampton, you could see the signs where problems were starting to creep up in the team. United went 2 goals down in the first half, and it was a poor performance. Obviously, we had chances in the first half, of course. We had a chance which McCarthy made a great double save from. Fernandes just came close before. Bednarek scoring at our weakness from corners when they're pressing on the keeper. He clearly had the advantage of height, nodded it in. They got their second from a Ward-Prowse free kick, which we know well and good now he's very good at. And heading into half-time, absolutely, absolute anger, frustration, you name it, we felt it. And now we're just asking, is it right now for Oli to still be in charge? Is he really getting the best out of this team? Ultimately, it turned out he did. Edinson Cavani came off the bench and played a huge role in United's comeback. Fernandes scoring early on in the second half to narrow the deficit just before the hour mark. Cavani would score the first of his goals 15 minutes from time before doing as we do best, leaving it late. He's there again, nodding in from a lovely cross on the left into the net. Fine. Just the limbs. It was beautiful. It was a lovely feeling. I didn't know the score, in fact.
I remember it quite well because I remember at half time we were 2-0 down and I went on Twitter and it was like the end of the world. And I just had this like weird feeling we were going to win. And I just tweeted, we're going to win 3-2. And my replies were just absolutely obscene. Like the things people were saying to me. And at the end, but it was crazy to me that I felt like I was rewatching. Do you remember under Ferguson, we played Southampton and we were 2 down and 1-3. Was it 2 down? I think it was because Van Persie scored at the end, didn't he? And we won 3-2. It was so similar to that. And just how Cavani got that header in the last minute. It was, like you said, absolute limbs.
Limbs everywhere. If it weren't physical, it would be on Twitter at least. And to say that we wouldn't have deserved to have lost that game just on sheer belief alone. So, well, I did well that day, and confidence was brewing for the return leg of Paris. Crucial for United, a point would take us through, and a lot of belief heading into that game from fans who felt like Oli had mastered how to beat Paris away. It was just now debunking the home form against them. Paris, though, turned up with the usual megastars and their overall belief that they could get a result in this game. They didn't have Di Maria, who was injured, but they still came with a strong team. And the first blow was initiated within 6 minutes. United opened up and let Neymar in. He tapped in his first goal at Old Trafford, surprise, surprise, and he opened a score for Paris. United sort of fought back in the game with a Rashford equaliser, deflected it may have been. But United got back into the match. However, Fred had gotten booked before that for what we felt was the softest yellow card football's ever seen, I think, in the way that him and Paredes squared up. And although it looked like there was a leaning of the head, Paredes, in any case, instigated that. And Fred was to be cautioned instead of Paredes. It was a strange occasion. Paredes would later get booked for a foul, but he didn't get sent off. Fred, however, did. This was after United had gone behind through Marquinhos scoring from another one of United's weaknesses, a corner, which they didn't get clear. And
Fred definitely should have come off in this game. And something else I remember about this game. So this game, I remember this perfectly well the whole day because it was my 21st birthday that day. And it was also the end of lockdown. So our plans for the few weeks before, we were like, oh my God, this is great. We can go out for your birthday. Pubs will be open again. We'll go and watch it in the pub. We'll see United beat PSG. And wow, it was miserable, wasn't it? It was really miserable. And the worst thing is we were in that game for a lot of it. I remember Martial had a chance. He blazed over the bar.
I was about to come on to that.
Yeah, Cavani as well. Like I remember he tried to dink the keeper and I think it hit the bar or something.
And then Martial missed again. He missed 2 chances in that game, which he would routinely score. It seems he has a curse against Paris Saint-Germain. I don't know what it is.
But and also as well, I think we can both agree on this. he should have taken Fred off. It was like Raphael against Bayern Munich.
Beyond even my wildest imagination, not even Raphael, it was another occasion would have been, I think, someone who was booked. I would have, in the 99, I would have, at the time, towards the end of the game, I'd have taken off Scholes before he got booked, but he got booked. So there's nothing we could do. And I would have done the same for, I would have done the same, like you said, for Raphael against Bayern when he got booked in the first half. He didn't make it to the first half. Half-time whistle because he got sent off then. It was a similar scenario with Fred, but Ollie stubbornly kept him on. Ultimately, he got sent off, and United was struggling. I think they were really struggling with 10 men. Still tried to create chances and open up PSG a lot. In the end, though, they left it late to secure the win. For United's detriment, that extra goal Paris scored helped them get into a favourable position on the head-to-head. So we would now have to not only get a point in Germany, but also avoid defeat. That's the simplest task. Before that, we went to West Ham, fell behind again. Typical corner, Souček scores in front of 2,000 fans.
Terrible.
Van de Beek played, Telles played. We rested Fernandes and Rashford for the Leipzig game. Hindsight thinking, if we, sacrificing players for next match by playing, and Shaw as well, sacrifice players for next match by playing this team with Van de Beek and Cavani from the start. And we went behind from that free kick, from that corner kick from West Ham. In the second half, however, Martial, who played a stinker, didn't have a good game. Neither did Cavani because it was simply not breaking through the West Ham backline. It forced Oli to make changes. He brought Rashford and Fernandes on in the second half of Van de Beek and Cavani, and the reaction was pretty much almost, it wasn't instant. It took a while, but United took the lead through a fabulous goal from Pogba outside the box, bent it into the corner, terrific goal. Big questions about it being out of play for David Moyes, who was howling at the referee, but nothing you could do. Once it was in, it was in. Greenwood would make it 2 with an exquisite finish inside the penalty area, 180 turn, and then drills it into the bottom corner. And then Rashford finished off with a one-on-one goal opportunity against Fabianski and curled it past him. So
this was one of those games where we looked so dead and buried.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, within about 10, 15 minutes, we were 3-1 up. And it just felt really surreal.
Yeah.
And I remember, I can't remember who scored the goal, but was it Pogba's goal?
It was Pogba's goal.
The ball went out of play.
It was, as I had just mentioned.
David Moyes was just absolutely losing his mind.
VAR can't check that, by the way. Logically, they can't check for balls going out of play in the air in that nature because the camera positions wouldn't have been able to spot it, first of all, and you'd have to set up about 50 different other things to be able to determine when the ball goes on and off the pitch. They can do it on the goal lines, but they can't do it on the touch lines. So ultimately, in the end, I got away with that one. Pogba's goal was brilliant, and I won the game 3-1. And then another defining moment in our season took place in Germany. Now, the hype for this game was overly surrounded by Mino Raiola's comments about Paul Pogba before the match. I think it was Sunday evening, Raiola came out into the press and said about Pogba's future at United, saying it's highly unlikely Pogba will be a United player at the end of the season. He's feeling like he's not gaining the success he aimed for when he came to the club, etc., which brought a huge uproar from not only the fans, but from United themselves. So much so in Ollie's press conference, he went and had to answer numerous questions on the man. And in the end, it did seep into the players. They did get distracted, unfortunately.
100%.
It would then lead to us going into the match against Leipzig. Still, the stakes remain the same. I needed just 1 point, and that would be enough to secure last 16 qualification. Unfortunately, this time it would mean they only qualify on the basis of group runners up, because they could have won the group had they picked up the point and gone to Germany and not lost. Losing to PSG put us on the back foot. We even put ourselves on the back foot inside 10 minutes. Al-Khalili after 2 and Amadou Haidara after 13. United were already in a big, bad, horrible position. Setup was wrong because he'd gone with 3 at the back again. It didn't work It didn't work in Paris the second time. The first time it worked. The second time it wouldn't work. The next time he plays against Leipzig, just stick to the same system. But he didn't. He played the diamond. with 5 at the back. There simply wasn't the personnel in the team to do that. In the end, with United 2 goals down and it being exposed on the wings for the 2 flying fullbacks charging, or more or less Haidara's a winger, Ahmed Angelino was a left back charging into the box and draw home the opener. United were poor in that first half an hour. But the worst thing is they really didn't create any sufficient chances in the game in the first half.
It felt hopeless, didn't it? I mean, you just sit there. Like, I think I watched this because this is when pubs were still open, I think. For some reason, losses are always worse for me when I'm in the pub. I don't know why that is. I think it's because I think there's more people to rub it in, maybe. That's probably why. But you just sat there and you're like, okay, we've got 1 down. The positioning's terrible. And then it happens again. But I remember this game quite well because I remember they kept like booting it, literally quite simplistic, Big Sam style, just long balls over Wan-Bissaka's side. And Wan-Bissaka just couldn't deal with it. And they just kept getting chances from that side. I think both of the first 2 goals came from that. And they targeted Wan-Bissaka and exploited him, bless him. And yeah, we were, like you said, we were 2 down, and it felt really awful that game because, like you said, the undertones to it, with everything going on with Paul Pogba the previous day, there was a lot of kind of sadness around the club and a lot of negativity because it was like, well, one of our best players has come out the day before and said they want to leave, and we're about to go out of the Champions League. And it was like a kind of perfect storm of just anger and just sadness at the same time. And it was that feeling of, like, against Tottenham, that feeling of just helplessness, where it's like you're 3 down in a Champions League game. You need to draw to get through. Your star player's about to come on who wants to leave. And you just sat there like, it just felt really hopeless, especially, as we've just referred to, the massive win against Leipzig, the massive win against PSG and everything. And then you sat there thinking, well, it was all for nothing,
It's a shame. Alexei pointed out tonight we did go 3 down. We did. In the second half, United, despite adjusting the situation a little bit after half time, bringing off Van de Beek and taking off Telles so that Luke Shaw was free to roam down the left-hand side of the field as he normally does, going to 4 at the back as well. United just simply could not break through Leipzig's solid backline. In the end, they would make the 3rd goal happen after rather poor defending from Harry Maguire and a combined effort of the keeper and him not deciding who should go for the ball. And United would ultimately collapse again after Kluivert manages to just lob it over the keeper to find the 3rd for the home side.
That was terrible, that goal.
It looked like it was done, and it ultimately did. United did pull back 2 more. They had to bring on Pogba up before that just to try and narrow the deficit. I think Fernandes before this hits the bar from a free kick before they score this goal, and suddenly you think your luck's not going for you, and then it definitely goes for Nagelsmann's side. We'd get a penalty. Mason Greenwood was adjudged to have been fouled by Canate. Contentious call, but we got it anyway. Fernandes scores the spot kick. Canate scores an own goal before making life very awkward for the home side. They had to bring on Hasselberg at the end. It came so close to Canate scoring a 2nd own goal. Had Gulassi not been there, we'd have managed to squeeze through. But no. In the end, we deserved to be eliminated from the Champions League, demoted to the Europa League on the basis that we simply could not beat Istanbul Başakşehir in Turkey, or pick up a point from 2 matches in the competition's group stage. So, out we go. And take it from me, Alexei. It was incredibly disappointing. I think I chose very, bad words that evening.
Yeah.
I very much regret saying a few of them. I do.
Well, you compared the Istanbul game to Wolfsburg. That Leipzig game was literally a rerun of Wolfsburg. Same scoreline, same kind of stipulation. But yeah, that day just felt awful because it was like, we've beaten PSG and Leipzig and we've just lost. We've lost it in the last 2 games. Yeah. But I remember the full-time whistle went, and I said to my friend, I'm angry about tonight, But once again, the reason we're out is Istanbul. If we drawn with Istanbul, we'd be through.
Yeah.
It can happen losing to PSG and Leipzig. There are things that can happen. Where it went wrong was us losing to Istanbul, which is completely... It's just crazy that happened. But, I mean, it was being back in the Europa League after how intense the top 4 battle was the year before, like the last day game against Leicester, I remember being really nervous for that, going, oh, want to be in the Champions League and everything. And just it all being taken from you at the group stage was just, it was so brutal, Ahmed, wasn't it?
I said it at the end of last season, to get into the Champions League was great, but if we're going to be good in it, we have to get out of the group stage, no matter who we're drawn against. Obviously, it's a group of death with all 3 major sides, 2 semi-finalists as well, one being the runner-up as in particular. You still have to take the teams on and try and get the results you need to qualify for the last 16. In the end, we were well and truly beaten, fair and square, by 2 very good European sides. And because obviously we did the job in the first match, we should have really secured it in match day 3. We let ourselves down that night, and it just curtailed our first half of the season completely. What was worse was that United had to lick their wounds and get ready for the Manchester derby right after it. It was the worst possible thing to do, to prepare for the derby after just being knocked out of the Champions League. Now, this was a City team that had yet to have found its spark still, but yet another abject 0-0 draw. Little was created, and in the end, United just, again, with a whimper, struggled to beat their local rivals at Old Trafford. Even though they'd beaten them way earlier on in the year, it would have been a huge scalp for United at the time had they had picked up the result against City. But, no one was worried too much. We moved on to this crazy Christmas period. Haven't got all night, so we're going to try and whiz through the Christmas period. United would go unbeaten following City in domestic football for 8 games. Wins against Sheffield United, the Leeds thrashing, beating Everton, drawing with Leicester. Drawing with Leicester, beating Wolverhampton very late on with Marcus Rashford, and on New Year's Day against Aston Villa. And a nice 8-match unbeaten run pushed United closer to the top 4 of the league. In fact, United would be in the top 4 before New Year's even came round. We had then a huge a huge cup tie against, ironically, Man City again. Now, having drawn them in the league, this would be our opportunity, having progressed through the cup competition, to cement our opportunity of going to Wembley. Plus, it's a one-off. Silverware is essential. No matter who it's against in the final, United would have taken the opportunity of being at Wembley under any circumstances for a trophy. Poor, though, yet again. First half, Ruben Diaz and John Stones played blinder. We could not get through the City defence. And they were playing their imperious football, making life hard for United in possession and increasing difficulty of United getting the ball back without it. And we were made to run around a lot all night long. Ultimately, in the end, we were beaten, as I said, roundly by a very good performance, even with Pogba and Pogba, Fernandes, Rashford, all in the team. We simply could not beat them. It was awful. It was just awful. As far Alexei's just going to go and do something very quickly, but more or less, United were very poor and needed to improve quickly. Defeat in the cup obviously brought a lot of disappointment and some impatience among the ranks of fans, but knowledgeability was that night we conceded from a poor free kick, which we should have defended better, and the second being we had to get a result that would favour us on going to extra time, possible penalties. We didn't get that. The second goal was a great goal from Fernandinho. We lost the tie out of the Carabao Cup. It's not the most ideal trophy to win, but if you needed silverware in the club, that was the best opportunity. Sadly, it would be a while till United tasted cup satisfaction again in terms of progress in the competition through... There's Alexei again. Through getting through the FA Cup against Watford on the Saturday, before winning at Burnley that night against Burnley, particularly put United top of the Premier League on virtue of form, and the rest of the teams being absolutely dog poo.
At that point, there was a point, wasn't there? I think it was when we beat Burnley around that time.
As I mentioned, yes, it was a 1-0 win against Burnley.
the 21's coming thing started off like as an ironic thing, but I remember there was a point I really thought we could win the Premier League, like around that time.
What made you think that?
Well, we just won every week for a bit, pretty much, didn't we? Because like you were kind of going through like the Leeds game, Wolves, Sheffield United.
I mean, we were unbeaten post Leipzig, unbeaten in the Premier League for the best part of 8 games. So with 2 draws, one against City and the one against Leicester, which we should have won. But in the end, we were unbeaten still, got to the top of the league. That night I thought, well, great, we're top of the league, fantastic. Now what? It's a case of now what do we do from here? Normally teams who go top run away with the league. United hit top spot and suddenly froze. I thought, well, this is weird. We're not used to being up here. This place is a bit different to how we used to see it. Oh, there's a trophy. Unfortunately, before we could even take a glance at it, we had to play the champions at Anfield. This was a huge opportunity to not only cement our potential as becoming a serious threat to the league this season. I wouldn't say title contenders, but many at the time would have thought, oh, now they're top. Let's see what they do. In that game, Liverpool played such a negative style of football, and a lot of hype surrounding the match was the fact that it could just be that the team that was stopping them from winning winning their 20th title and leveling with United were going to try and thwart United from extending their lead at the top of the table. In the end, we deserved what we got that day. I don't think we should have lost the game, but I certainly think we didn't win it because there was a lot of chances in that tie. We should have taken it.
You know how we were both saying like about those Chelsea games that were quite drab and stuff like that, and the City game that was quite drab. This Liverpool game was the most tense 0-0 I've had in my life. I don't know about you, but I was so nervous every time they went forward.
Oh yeah, by far.
We'd suddenly been propelled into this kind of like position where we were like, God, we could kind of maybe win the league. Well, I remember because something else I remember about this game quickly. My first ever preview on Trafford Talk was Liverpool-Manchester United. Mm-hmm. So this was the first time I came on. And I remember us talking on the preview and I was saying about us winning the league. I remember you said at the time about us being cautious and just being kind of calm. And you were right in the end, by the way, because I was getting carried away. But like, in the actual game, it was awful. I felt like the most nervous I've been for years. Every time they came forward, I got the ball. I felt so scared. And then obviously, we had the Bruno Fernandes free kick that was just wide, and we had that Paul Pogba opportunity. Oh, if that had gone in,
Fernandes came close in the second half with Anderson saving on the line. Yes, the Pogba chance, but simply put, I just did not. I think that day we got what we deserved on the point that we deserved a point only that because had we won the game, it would have been the biggest, shithousery we'd have ever had as United fans. That would have been the most fortunate win at Anfield for decades. We'd have got away with being further clear in first place, and who knows where our form would have gone from there. But had we won Liverpool, maybe the Fulham win would have looked a lot better. But everyone still was waxing at Liverpool, which was.
You know what's funny as well? Is it was kind of, it seems like this was only 2 months ago, but it seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? Because at that time, they hadn't been beaten at Anfield for about 3-4 years, and they've now lost six in a row.
Yeah. They were imperious at Anfield up to the point we went there and rattled them. And then obviously since then, they've now just had the most poor run of form at home in domestic football for so long. But anyhow, we moved on. United just couldn't measure up on the day. Moved on to midweek, played Fulham, and we had a chance to sort of continue putting pressure on ourselves by extending our lead at the top of the table or keeping ourselves there for a little longer. Crucial win. Cavani equalised after Lookman's opener, which was more or less United defending poor at the time. We went to sleep and no one saw him make the run in. And in the end, we were on the back foot,
weren't we?
Yeah, we were trying to play offside. Bailly wasn't in line. Yeah, Bailly wasn't in line with Maguire on the far side after a huge gap for Lookman to run into, and he slotted it home. But United came back in the match. Cavani scored from Ariola's save after a good crossing from the left through, I think it was Rashford. And then in the second half, Pogba scores a worldie, gives us 3 points, massive 3 points to keep us top of the table. We then would have to meet Liverpool again in the Cup in a more pulsating tie to the one we had last week, making you wish, why didn't we play like this at Anfield? Because they were absolutely, it was a complete difference to the team that we played against at Anfield at Old Trafford. Liverpool took the lead through Salah. United equalised with a lovely ball from Rash. Yeah, great game. Rashford's ball towards Greenwood was excellent. Greenwood slotted it home brilliantly to make it 1-1. United would take the lead in the second half through Marcus Rashford's excellent finish, thanks to vice versa roles. This time Greenwood assisting Rashford. The equaliser on Liverpool was a slick one, run into the box. Salah scores his second, and then United had to call on Fernandes to save us again and score the winner from a free kick.
How big did that feel though? Because I remember at the time it felt really big to me. Not really because we'd won a 4th round FA Cup tie. It wasn't big because of that. It was big because it was like, we've just beaten Liverpool at Old Trafford. They're the champions. We've not beaten them for a while. It felt like quite a big, significant moment that at the time I genuinely thought would be a turning point and would kick us on in the league. And it would just be like, look, we've beaten you. All right. Because do you remember when the cup was drawn, our fan base looked at the fixtures and went, okay, so we've got to play Liverpool twice in a week. Oh dear. If you'd said we'd get 4 points from that, or a win and a draw, a win at home and a draw at Anfield, you'd be delighted at that.
I wish it was 4 points, but it was progression in the cup instead of 4 points.
Yeah, so it felt like a really big kind of thing, but then it was kind of a bit like a horror film. You're focusing on one bit of the camera, so you're focusing on this like possessed thing coming towards you, which is Liverpool, and then out of nowhere, City, for some reason, just behind there, just came and just basically absolutely annihilated the league, didn't they?
Yep. Well, United didn't help themselves in that cause. City won the previous night against West Brom. United would meet bottom of the league, Sheffield United, and then it suddenly all fell apart. You don't want to remember that one. Because United that night had treated the game a little bit as if it was a gimme, and they'd get the 3 points they needed to secure their spot at the top of the table. They didn't go as strong as they would normally against the side in the top half of the table. Just the 3 changes in that game to the normal side we used to see. There was no Shaw, I believe, with a small knock. There was no Tuanzebe, and there was Tuanzebe instead of Bailly, and there was Matic instead of McTominay or Fred. Pogba played in that match as the deep line midfielder. Despite United's, performance, effort and performance that evening, Sheffield United came over and pulled off the typical part of the bus scheme, and obviously just demonstrating that they simply couldn't measure to United in any outset. And obviously, the previous fixture, United beat Sheffield United quite convincingly, despite the small...
a bit of flips. I mean, that Sheffield, I keep remembering, because like when you bring up these games, I keep remembering how bad it was now.
They were. Henderson's mistake in the first minutes of the game. United came back into it in the first half, scored a brilliant third in the second. They nearly put this back at the end at Bramall Lane. But this match,
this one was... It was just a punch in the face, wasn't it? I don't know how else to put it. It just felt like, how have we done this?
Huge punch in the face. But it wasn't without controversy. The first goal was scored by, I believe, Luke Bryan, who was up in the air to score the header, but Billy Sharp was seen pushing David De Gea. United would obviously not get the VAR decision on that one because it was a complete miss by the VAR that night. And we still wondered, how is that not a foul and why are United not getting away with that one? But unfortunately, the goal stood.
I think, the VAR in that was just disgraceful. And I mean, on a wider point, I'd say that kind of summed up how disgraceful VAR has been for all the teams. It's not just something I'm going to sit here and say it's just Manchester United. I've seen some decisions go against Tottenham, Liverpool, a lot of teams in that vein have suffered from VAR, but that Sheffield United game for me, before the game, I remember me and Cam were sat here on the preview going, I was going 21's coming. I was tweeting 21's coming. I was really optimistic. But that game literally took our title challenge and just shot it in the head. Like,
exactly.
It was so brutal, wasn't it? But it just felt like that was it suddenly. Because City, like you said, City had beaten West Brom, was it 5-0, I believe? And we'd gone and lost at home to one of the worst Premier League sides of all time, right? And it just felt like complete misery. And in the same way, in fact, I think so. If you're looking on the negatives of this season, I'd go Istanbul and Sheffield because, okay, it's bad losing to those teams in their own right, but ultimately Istanbul, Başakşehir, losing that game cost us being in the Champions League. And the Sheffield United game, it killed our title challenge because after that, I just don't think it wasn't the same after that, was it really?
No, because in that game, just to touch on the game quickly, because I don't want to forget too much, Maguire had a goal disallowed for a similar push to the keeper, which wasn't a push, but nevertheless, United missed that one. He scored ahead in the second half, but, we're still poor, didn't really put them under significant pressure before conceding a shocking goal, which I think is the worst thing I've ever seen in United defence do in a long time. Look, with Oliver Burke simply getting two shots at the two opportunities at goal. Bit of luck off of Tuanzebe's leg, but it hit the bar, went in. And you know what? We deserved it that night. We deserved to lose that game. So we lost our first match in 14 in all domestic in all Premier League games, I think it was at the time. And then suddenly the switch flicked. As obviously Alexei mentioned, it took a big dent to United's title challenge. Ultimately, we had to focus on getting through the next few matches and getting results we needed to keep as much pressure on City as we possibly could. So towards the end of January, we went to Arsenal and blanked again, typical United.
But
that time, Cavani had two good chances in the game. Rashford was open at the back post. That's not going to be something I'm going to forget too much in a hurry. Before the demolition derby against Southampton, we're not going to spend all night talking about that, but it was a great night for United. Bit of help at the start. Jankovic got sent off for stamping McTominay. Then the floodgates suddenly opened. A fine performance, goals from Wan-Bissaka, Rashford. Benderek scored an own goal before being sent off later on. Martial got 2. Fernandes and James also on the score sheet that night in United's biggest win in the Premier League for over 24 years. It was a very good performance that night, but it was only helped by the fact they did go down to 10 men and had a million injuries. So who knows, if we'd been lucky that night, we'd have probably not seen similar fortunes like that for the rest of the season, to put it mildly. Then we had another difficult game against Everton. United were much better against Everton in terms of overall performances. First half, United led 2-0 after 2 goals from Cavani, that's header at the back post, and Fernandes' goal, the season contender, Cantona style, bending it into the far corner against Robin Olsen. Fantastic strike. But when United needed to be comfortable and control the early stages of the second half, Ancelotti, being a tactical mastermind, he has switched it for Everton. He made it a little bit trickier for United to play in areas where they would have possession to themselves. And, more importantly, they needed to get the outball to Richarlison because on 5 or 6 different occasions in the first half, they couldn't pass the ball to him. He was simply nowhere to be found by any Everton player. And had they found him, he'd have either been in on 2 opportunities or could have set up other chances for players to score from. I would then see a mistake from De Gea after a routine cross was pushed out towards Doucouré, who pushed in with no trouble at all. And then James Rodriguez, 4 minutes later, drilled home an excellent goal to level the scores. United, tore and chipped away at Everton for a little while before scoring a third through McTominay. And this was then the point where United just needed to hang on. These 3 points would keep them in touching distance of City in the race for the title. But frankly...
So this was another one of those moments, wasn't it?
The clock has already passed 94
minutes.
And there's a foul that's been given, by the way. No, hold on. Remember the foul that was given on Cavani just before the center circle? And the players were congratulating, high fives and everything. We're about to hit the 94th minute. David De Gea eats up some time. And just, to make sure that the referee doesn't have any seconds to add on top of what he already needs to add on. He takes a free kick and it goes out into touch. United have to defend again, thinking the referee's going to blow the whistle straight afterwards. This is already, 94:08 when he takes a free kick? And it's not 94:15 when the free is taken. Tuanzebe gives away a foul, free kick to Everton on the far side. Tuanzebe is booked for that challenge. It's a wide free kick, and United have problems with wide free kicks. And what's worse is keepers coming up to add the threat. Now, the one thing we've obviously highlighted ever since is United's incapability of defending crosses. And we spoke about Sevilla and we spoke about Leipzig as well. But it was that cross from Dino which flashed across the two men in the near side of the wall that didn't get near the ball. Calvert-Lewin was allowed to get under control thanks to the flick off from Michael Keane, and he managed at best with the head not rushing out quickly enough to poke it past the keeper and score the one goal that ruined United's title hopes this season, even if it were fleeting and looks very unlikely in my opinion.
So
that changed everything.
Was a bit not as bad as the Istanbul one, of course. But it
was a massive sucker punch.
But it was still pretty awful because, like you said, it was a sucker punch. But also, it was the fact De Gea didn't come for the ball. Maguire was playing them all offside, if I remember correctly.
Onside.
Also, onside. Sorry, yeah. I think it was Rashford and Cavani and someone else. They were stood there and they just didn't really jump and they just completely missed the ball. And obviously, the Swansebi foul in the first place was a bit silly, and it was just another really shambolic goal that just makes you sit there and go, "Oh, it's just self kind of, we just brought it on ourselves, basically, And this was a trend for the whole season. This thing of conceding like stupid goals from set pieces, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And what's worse is he brought Swansebi on to secure the back line just to ensure United didn't concede again. And it sacrificed Greenwood. Maybe if United stayed in shape and not allowed had maybe more or less just played it safe for that period of time, maybe a small period of time, play it safe, pass it out instead of kicking it down for touch, that would have been a different result. But unfortunately, it was to be. United lost 2 crucial points, and it was a train of points that would lead to City while they're on their incredible run to extend the gap further and further. A 1-0 win against West Ham in the FA Cup after extra time, of course, a hard note that one, put us through to the next round of the competition. We'd find out we'd play Leicester in the next round. But another one of those matches on Valentine's Day ruined our feelings. We were about to play with Sociedad in the Europa League, and I was more worried about that game than West Brom. But even still, I conceded inside 2 minutes with Diak's header, which demonstrating why Lindelof struggles against physical strikers. Fernandes scores a wonder goal once again to save United's backsides, but chances of plenty in the second half were simply not taken, and United fell again further behind in the race. We went into a tough period. Europa League returns, and we had probably the hardest game of the lot against Real Sociedad. People fearing the worst because Spanish opposition, very good team. David Silva's in it because he always wins against United when he plays against us, no matter what colours he's wearing. But, complete a performance of solidity, perfection, and excellent counter-attacking. Because Sociedad came at United in the first 3 minutes, and above the game was clear to see when United went forward, didn't make the chance count. Isak goes in and had an opportunity, couldn't take it. But United managed to then really put the start on. Fernandes scoring twice, Rashford and James getting on the score sheet and cementing United's a 4-0 lead into the second leg. Before winning 3-1 at home to Newcastle, didn't make it half easy for ourselves again. It's a poor Newcastle side, unfortunately. But we still took the lead through Rashford's excellent goals, skinning Kraft and thumping it into the corner before some nice goals, before an equaliser from Maximin because United can't kick corners. Great. James made it 2-1. He was having a good run of form at this point, getting his second goal in 3 games. 2 games at this point before a penalty from Willock fouling Rashford gave Fernandes a chance to secure the win. We had a board draw against Sociedad, which really was the only highlight of which was Oyarzábal's missed penalty, tried to emulate Fernandes, and the foul on Gorosabal from Lindelof, where his leg clashes into the man after jumping 7 foot into the air. Yep, his leg wasn't out like that, but it was tucked in. He still took the man out. A clear foul. Swansebi was denied the goal, the poor fella. And United just, again, whimpered to a 0-0 draw, but still qualified for the last 16. Then we went to Chelsea, who under Thomas Tuchel were in a good mood, looking prepared for the task at hand, had just beaten Atletico in the Champions League as well. So they were feeling confident again. However, a controversy once again. Penalty calls and VAR once more struck in the limelight. Hudson-Odoi clearly, more or less, had his hand on the ball. Referee has to go to the screen to check it out, doesn't give the penalty. Now, remember earlier this season, the rules had been changed after the Eric Dyer incident where he had no control of his arm, the Victor Lindelof incident against Crystal Palace, and a whole host of others that frustrated fans and players aplenty as to the nonsense rule that was applied for handball. It doesn't matter where on the arm it hits or how high it is or where it is. If it hits it, it's a penalty. And unfortunately, that one was one of those that would have been given 4 months ago, but it didn't. And United were, protesting till the day's end. Chances are plenty, though. Chelsea came close. David De Gea made a great save. We also had to make a few of our opportunities ourselves, but in the end, another 0-0 draw against the top 6 side. And you were starting to wonder when it's going to happen for United, because we're getting away from United. On top of that, we were still struggling to get results. We went on to draw again against Crystal Palace in a much more poor game, a much worse game. Henderson would deputise and go after De Gea to go on to become a dad. And ultimately, we still looked lethargic against the Palace side.
You remember, Ahmed, we reviewed this, didn't we? I remember me and you were sat there reviewing this, and
I don't want to remember the review too much.
Of just abject sadness.
It was the most depressing football match that you've seen I play in a long time, and it was one of those that you thought we might accidentally end up going into a top 4 race here if we're not careful. And we would then have to think about possibly dealing with the juggernaut that was Man City, who at this point in all competitions had won 21 games in a row. We went there and we were probably feeling the worst, knowing that we're here to get tonked because we're not in any way good enough to play against the side that are running the league like this. But United did their job and did it brilliantly. Started out of the blocks with a house on fire, ran at the City defence immediately. Rashford gets lucky with a pass in towards Martial. He gets bonded by Jesus. Penalty, typical Fernandes business, eh? He makes it 1-0 after 3. United then play a disciplined match, but City had their spells and put more and more effort on to creating chances, but for some strange reason, we're nowhere near as clinical as they normally were. In the second half, Henderson catches the ball, lobs it to Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw does his job of running down the line, fooling Cancelo into running one way and he goes the other. Runs down the pitch, space to work into. He plays the ball to Rashford. Rashford doesn't play a good one back to him, but everyone in blue is sucked onto the ball. He manages to squeeze it through the tightest spot and roll it past Ederson to make it 2. And United just looked very good in that game. Could have been 3 if Martial scored the opportunity offered to him. In the end, though, that 3 points was not just crucial to keep United's hopes of stay in the top 4 up, having to respond to Leicester as well, but to also ensure that we were in a comfortable position in second place. Now, we're still, at this point, not sure how long it would be permanent. It will stay like that for. However, we would then go into our last 4 games before the international break and have fortunes of mixed variety. We move on to Milan, having beaten City, needing to continue that run, but without many key first-team players. Obviously, Rashford injured on the derby day, making a good effort to help us at the back. We also had problems with, I believe, Bayer had to place as Lindelof was injured. Pogba wasn't fit, so he was already out at this point, Pogba. We only had Martial, and Van de Beek also wasn't fit. I forgot about that. So we played, I think, the bare bones against Milan, and we did very well in that game. Luke Shaw wasn't fit either. We had the bare bones, did just squeeze in front through a lovely backwards header from Diallo, and in the end, United were in front. We scrapped and clawed away, could have scored 2 in the first half as well with that Maguire miss. Oh dear. And James back post in the second half, although he's not the most clinical finisher. We would like to just to stay calm and put it away. Metahan's here. Nice to see you, Metahan. Nice. Welcome to the show, mate. Yeah, we needed some luck, really. We had luck go against us. In the last minute, corner kick into the box. Simon Kjær get to the front post. And ultimately, we committed a sin on ourselves of letting them score an away goal at Old Trafford. It put instant pressure on United for the second leg. But it ultimately needed a response again. It needed to respond in Italy. Before that, we had West Ham at home. Craig Dawson scored a goal. Were okay that night, played well, didn't really create much against the West Ham side. We're just very happy to sit back and try and counter. It didn't work. And Moyes was easily sussed out. Won again against West Ham. We've now completed a triplet against them. Before Pogba came back and made his cameo against Milan. Struggled in the first half and needed a goal, just one to go through. Pogba comes on, scores a brilliant goal, sends us to the quarterfinals of the Europa League. And then we come on to Sunday and the disappointment of Leicester City, where ultimately we deserved to go out. And that's frankly how we see that game. Even up to this, after 48 hours on from losing, we still see as the defeat, which defined a bit of Ollie's season, but has now brought a backlash of frustration in. And because we're in an international break, there's going to be more people, clamoring for Ollie's head and stuff like that, while England and Germany and Portugal, all those lot play with our players out there, hopefully praying they don't get injured. Problem still for United. Rashford is out at the moment, as we're now up to date. Rashford is still out. It looks like he will probably be rehabbing with England. If he plays, I'll be shocked. Van der Beek will go out to get some confidence against for Holland. Martial and Pogba with France. No South American players because of coronavirus issues are over there, and it's not good. It's a big hotbed for COVID-19 over in South America. We have got so many problems right now with the squad, and it's not great.
So overall, obviously, we've been through the whole season
up to this point. 5 defeats, just to stress. We've lost 5 games this season. I think in 63. So 63 games that we played since the restart last season. We lost 5 of them. This season, however, we've lost 1, 2, 3.
So we've lost
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've lost 9 games this season out of a good majority. I can't count all of them, but yeah.
If we're looking at the league form, so we've lost 4. We've scored 56 goals, which is the second most. We've conceded 32, which is the 5th least. We've created 72 big chances, which is the 3rd most. And we've missed 39 big chances, which is the joint 4th most. And we've kept 12 clean sheets, which is the 4th most, which suggests that as a team...
I forgot to mention our unbeaten run in domestic football ended at 30, if you just to remember.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part.
So as a team, we've really come on a lot this year, I think, in the league. Yeah, like as we were discussing, as we were going through, we were both face palming and I was in pain remembering some of these results. But overall, as a team, we are a lot better than we were last season, and we are making progress. And this progress is so impressive because you look at it in the conditions Ollie had to do this progress in. So we've had 63 games since the first lockdown. Okay. So this is data that's been gathered by an account called Tabsy 1986. He's a fantastic account. I'd go and follow him if you have a minute.
I do right here.
Ideal. So 3.96 rest days between games. Okay. So you remove the day post game, and Ollie had on average 1.5 days on the training pitch. Like I said, that's all down to Tabsy. He worked that out. But I want to use that to show that the whole season we've been under the cosh. We've not had a pre-season at all. We've not had any gaps between games. We've had some dodginess with transfers. Yet, okay, things aren't perfect. The FA Cup game wasn't good enough at all. That upset me a lot. The Champions League was not good enough. However, we're at a point now in the season where we're comfortably second in the league. We've scored, as I said, the second most goals in the league. We're genuinely improving as a team as the years go on, which is a sign of progression. We've got a very good chance of winning the Europa League. And, if we come second and win the Europa League, I see that as a very good season. And one other thing I would like to say is about this whole thing about Ollie lowering expectations and all this. So I agree with everyone who says that we do need to win a trophy. That is, of course, something I agree with. I'm annoyed we went out of the FA Cup. It was bad. But people need to understand, right? whether you like it or not, Ollie's long-term goal at the club is to win a Premier League title next year or the year after. He sees these seasons in the league as propelling him into a position to win a title, to breed players through, to build up a system, to build up a team. This is not a manager who's in a job to just get a load of older players, experienced players, and win a League Cup. The League Cup or the Europa League is not the end game for Ollie. We don't know whether Ollie will win the league, but I know for sure his long-term goal and his brief by the owners is to win the league or the Champions League. So things like the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the Europa League simply aren't his priority. I think it would be great to win one of those. I'm not saying it wouldn't be. I really want to win a trophy. It's miserable not winning them. But you've got to remember the bigger picture here is that Ollie isn't just doing it because he has no expectations and he's just trying to make us all sad, you know. He wants us to win the league. And the best indication of how good a team is, I think personally, rather than winning a League Cup and coming 10th, is over a 38-game season showing improvements in every sense, because that's the biggest sample size you have in football, is a league season. That's how you judge how good a team is. And of course, I would love to win a trophy as well, because if we come second and win a trophy, that's great. We've won a trophy, and over a big sample size of a season, we've improved. Mm-hmm. But I think we need to just be, I know it's difficult because we lost the other day, but I think we do need to be a bit more patient. And, you know, second for me is progress, okay? And it's only progress if next season we go on and we challenge or nearly win the league. If we're sat here in 6 months, 7 months time, and we're sat in a really low position and we're not making progress, then I will have a conversation with you about whether the manager is doing well enough. But currently, if you said to me at the start of the season, like we said, without any preseason at all, with all the dodgy signings, all of this, that we'd currently be second, you know, quite comfortably ahead of fifth in March, I would have fully taken it. And, you know, yeah, we need a trophy, but overall, it's a very acceptable season for me.
Well, yeah, I feel the same way. I feel we had too many good opportunities to show our muscles in Europe. This season we did, however, unfortunately fall short in the Champions League. I'd have liked us to seen how we did in the last 16 of this competition, particularly with the nature of the sides left in the competition now. With if we'd met the Liverpools or the Chelseas again, maybe we'd have had a different attitude. Or even if we scraped through and met Porto, no disrespect to Porto, they're a very good team. I'd have thought we could have overhauled them. But great, in the grand scheme of things, I think the Europa League's our best level when it comes to winning competitions. In the Champions League, we're really just, at the moment, a name. And if we're going to win that kind of competition, we need stars in the team. We need players that will really grab a match by the scruff of the neck in crucial moments in the Champions League, or we need a bit of luck in our group next season, because ultimately, and our run into the next rounds, because we don't get that much luck in draws. But the only way I see us really being fortunate in competitions like the European Cups is if we apply ourselves a bit better. In the league, though, I'm happy with how it's gone, albeit with the blemish of losing 6-1 to Tottenham and Arsenal at home. I'm happy with the way we've been unbeaten away from home for so long now in this particular season as well. So, I mean, we've got how many away games left now? Just looking at it, got Spurs, Leeds, Aston Villa and Wolves left away from home. So we've got 4 more matches to play away from Old Trafford where we could secure an unbeaten season away from Old Trafford. I mean, obviously they're tough. It's tough to win away from home or get points away from home. But I think we, as a moniker for the season, if we just have that and build on our home for next season with this good away form, obviously we will lose 1 or 2. I think we just do enough to close the gap to City. But a strong finish this season will help. And that plus winning the Europa League, which is ultimately the only eggs we have when it comes to winning a trophy this season, we more or less will secure second if we just keep our good run of form going. I feel like by the time we get to Liverpool, we've got 5 games. Sorry, 5 games. If we get up to Liverpool and we're in a comfortable position there with 4 matches to go, I think we should be safe in the Champions League spot. We just have to get through that 5-game period. But for me, we have a good run to the final of the Europa League. We just need to make sure, obviously, we don't have any blips against Granada. And then the semi-final against possibly these lot or against Roma. Who knows? But it's a matter of facing the reality that's in front of us. And I feel we have our fate in our hands. We should secure top 4 sooner rather than later. It's nothing to be proud of, but if we get into the Champions League quickly and then focus on just tallying up the goals as we go along, make sure we have a strong finish to the season, keep as close to City as possible. I know they'll lose 1 or 2 because they've got a crazy finish, especially in April. They've got, at best, if they get through Dortmund, they'll have another game in the Champions League. They've got FA Cup semi-final and a match against Tottenham in the Carabao Cup. So their April is like packed. And while we can't do anything about stopping and winning trophies this season, which we really should, however this year finishes, we're putting on us to learn from these mistakes this year and not let them happen again next season. It's the best we can do. So, exiting the Europa League basket, I've wanted to win it anyway. I prefer winning the Europa League over the FA Cup, just on the grounds that, the Cup's disrespected a lot, but it hasn't got that spice or the feel of a competition that, you'd want to win anymore. So I would take this competition, and it means we could possibly have a nice trip in Europe early on in the season next season. Who knows? And I'd like a Super Cup win because we are overdue one. We've been the bridesmaids 3 times and won it once. So the sooner we get that done, the better. But that's our review of the season, everyone. I hope for those of you stuck with us, thank you. We've got a long way till we have the Brighton preview, but that's soon. We have still got plenty more. I have a few ideas for coming up for this channel, which will be isolated videos, and hopefully you guys interacting. That is related to transfers. I'm no transfer guru, but that's something I'll do very soon. Alexei will be doing his own show as soon as Robbie's back from hopefully whatever's bugging him. I hope he's okay. We obviously wish him well. But most importantly, as always, we hope you enjoyed the show. We're really happy bringing it to you because we're bored as F and need something to cover the time between now and the end of the week, because tomorrow is the international period. But it's still there's something to watch, at least to look and keep our eyes on in terms of targets, particularly Milenkovic. He's going to be playing tomorrow, I think, against. I think he's going to be playing tomorrow against. Let me just make sure I'm not missing it. No, he's not playing tomorrow. There's a few players playing tomorrow. We need to keep an eye on. But anyway, thanks to Alexei. Pleasure as always. Check him out on Twitter, MCRenarby99. Big following, but he's a great guy. He's got great opinions. And please like and subscribe as well. We appreciate you all tuning in, and we'll be back sometime later this week with another video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.